Okay, today I'm going to take a look at the William Blake Tarot of the Creative Imagination. This is an interesting deck. The book for the deck is online. It's a free online deck book. So if you do want to learn more about the deck, you can go just search William Blake Tarot, and there'll be a link to look at the book. And there's also a nice little book with the deck, which is actually very helpful as well. Okay, now what's interesting about this deck is it was made by Ed Byrne, who studied William Blake. William Blake lived around 1800. He was born before that and died a little bit after that, so basically around 1800. And he was a poet and a painter and an artist and an imaginative, creative thinker. And Ed Byrne, who did this deck, learned a lot about William Blake and decided to take his art and his thoughts about creativity and imagination and put them into a tarot deck. It's similar to, I think when you think of the Rider-Waite, it's not a Rider-Waite deck, and it's not a Thoth deck, but it's similar in the sense that it's a man's interpretation of the tarot and taking things. In Ed Byrne's case, he took things from William Blake and then infused them into a tarot deck. But it's different than your normal Rider-Waite or your Thoth deck. There are some similarities. It's still 78 cards. It still has the major arcana, which is very similar to all the other major arcanas that go back to the 1500s. The minors are different, are noticeably different. What I love about this deck, some decks resonate with people. Now, I haven't read with this deck, so a lot of times it's about a deck resonating with you. But intellectually, or on the surface, this is my deck because it's about creative imagination. And it says here, it even says it right on the book. It says, Handbook for the William Blake Tarot of the Creative Imagination. So with the framework of the tarot, he brings in the importance of creative thinking, and it being creative thinking, creative imagination, and how it's part of the divine, getting to know the divine. So getting to experience the divine, which I am a very strong believer of it. And from my own perspective, I write. I've written books. I write books of novels, and I've written nonfiction books. And then of course, I do artwork, and I'm teaching myself piano, and I write nonfiction as well. I am a critical thinker, which is the scientific mind. I majored in philosophy when I was in college. So this tarot deck really speaks to me intellectually. When I looked at it and read about it. So it may not be for everyone, but I think it's a great book. And it's a different take than like the Thoth, which is a little on the darker side for me. And a lot of symbology that just, weighs me down. I'm not really into that. And then the Rider-Waite Smith is interesting, but it seems, sort of like, sort of middle of the road, or sort of, I want to say parochial or anything like that, but it's just sort of, it's okay, but it doesn't speak to me. This really speaks to me. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do a series on this deck. Like I'm doing a series with the Margaret Peterson deck because I think it's remarkable, and I may do a series of videos on this deck as well, because there is a lot, sort of. And I think what I'd like to do is to take cards from this deck and put them alongside other cards, like from the Rider-Waite Smith deck. And then you get to see, how it's different and how it's the same. This seems to have, there are no reversals. He doesn't use reversals in this, but he does use, at the end of each little summary of the card, he talks about the creative process meaning. So they all have, instead of reversals, they have creative process meanings. So that really appeals to me as well. And they all have the creative process meanings. So that's very unique to this deck. I'm going to go through the deck real fast, or I don't know how fast you go through 78 cards, you know what I mean? But so the artwork is from William Blake, and I believe it's a collage deck, so it's somehow put together. And he does have his own card. He has one card that's unique. It's the Eternity card. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you have the Fountain Tarot. I'm not sure. It's similar to, it's a very positive card. I'm just going to read you the powerful creative of spiritual realization, being blessed and inspired by a dream or a vision, awakening one's spiritual destiny, tremendous opportunity in the offing, a positive and significant card in any situation. So this is kind of a card that stays in the deck that kind of improves any card that it's around. It brings it up to a whole new level. The Eternity card. In the Fountain Tarot, they have the Fountain card. You know, it's sort of like a greatly spiritual card, a spiritual card as well. So that's sort of they're sort of similar to that. Now, the other thing that this deck has, which is similar to the Thoth deck, is it has keywords on every card, and that's kind of good. It's kind of helpful, you know, especially if you agree with the keywords. And this deck is a positive deck, I think, generally. I mean, it's about creativity and imagination, so it can't be that negative. So it's a positive. It's a little bit, it takes things a little bit on the more positive side, which is nice. So we'll just go through the deck and we'll look at the keywords, and I'll just go through a couple of things to orient you to the deck, because there's some real basic things that you need to learn about the deck before you start reading with it. This is the Fool card, Innocence. So he has the same major arcana. This is magic. He has his own words. Mystery would be the High Priestess, which makes sense. Nature, which would be the Empress. Reason, the Emperor. This is his sign for science. We'll see that in other cards. Religion, the Hierophant. Knowledge, the Lovers. Now he explains why it's knowledge in the book. In this little book, I'll tell you what he says in this little book. All important, possibly moral choice to be made. Be discriminating with advice from others. Deep insight into a relationship or one's own involvement in a relationship. A need to integrate all levels of consciousness within oneself. An opportunity for intimacy and or open communications. So it's knowledge, interpersonal knowledge, I think, sort of, as opposed to it's not science. He's not talking about science there. Experience, the Chariot. Assessment. This would be Justice. Imagination, the Hermit. I love that. Whirlwind is the Wheel of Fortune. Energy is Strength. So, I mean, these paintings are by William Blake. William Blake lived from like the 1800s, 1700s, I'm sorry. Then I think he died in 1825 or in the early 1800s. And these are his paintings from back then. They're pretty amazing. A Hangman, reversal. Death is transformation. Temperance is forgiveness. The Devil is error. The Tower is lightning. Then we have stars, moon, sun. Judgment is liberty. And the world is union. You can just tell from the keywords that it's a different take to some extent. Okay, so now we're into the suits. And he has, now this is a book on creative imagination and creative activities and finding your, being in touch with your creative spirit, which is your divine nature. And he has his suits divided into painting, science, poetry, and music. You can tell what it is by down here. He has these glyphs, and this little glyph is the glyph for pentacles. So this is the Ace of Painting. There's the pentacles. And so we'll just go through it. And then he continues with his keywords: generation, balance. This is the pentacle suit. Practice, means, hardship, assistance, patience. Online, when you read the book, he does go through the numerology of the cards, and I love the sevens. What he says that sevens are they're testing, they're tests for that suit. In other words, you kind of have to challenge yourself. It's a challenge. The sevens are challenge, and in this case, for the pentacles, the 7 is learning patience. You must be patient. Discipline, fruition, and delight. The next thing he does that's different than the other cards, he has a part of the court cards is first an angel, kind of like an overseer, an angel of painting. And then you have the child of painting, the woman of painting, and the man of painting. These don't have the key words, but the book certainly talks about them at length. And again, look at these paintings. They're so cool. Okay, so now we're in the intellect, which is the sword suit. And here you have your little glyph of the sword. And here's the compass, the thing they use to make circles. Intellect, reflection. This is a sword suit. Jealousy, repose, division, passage, lamentation, restriction, despair. And then we have, defeat. So, yeah. Then we have the angel of science, the child of science, the woman of science, and the man of science. Okay, we have the music now. The music is the water suit, the emotions, and this is the sign for the cups, I guess the cup suit. And here he has little, I believe these are from William Blake, these little sayings here. The ace of music, which is passion. The 2 of music, contraries. The 3 of music, this is the cup suit, exuberance. The 4 of music is musing. Now see, here's an example. In the Rider-Waite, I don't know what is in the Thoth. I don't read the Thoth, but the Rider-Waite, the gentleman's under the tree and he's looking bored or depressed, or he looks like he's not really into He's not in the moment, you know. But this case, you have the Four of Cups, and he calls it musing. Now, if you look at the Rider-Waite, you could say he was musing, not very happily, but he was musing. He was thinking. So that's how this is apropos. Five of Music, Five of Cups, melancholy. Six of Music is pleasure. Seven of Music is fancies. In this, he talks about, again, the test. What is the test of the seven? In this case, there's a lot of choices. You know, the test is making a choice, you know, weighing your options. Which way do you want to go? Which you have a lot of options here, which are wonderful, but you have to make a decision. And so there's fancies. There's many things to choose from, to pick from, and that's the challenge. That's the test. 8, discontent. Nine of Music was the Nine of Cups, happiness. Sublimity is the 10 of Music, which is the 10 of Cups. Then you have your Angel of Music, your Child of Music, your Woman of Music, and your Man of Music. Of course, they're with musical instruments as well. Very cool. So it's kind of cool. You could certainly riff on that when you're doing a reading. Poetry. This is the Wand suit. So the dogs want to go out, but I can't finish just yet. I'm almost done. If I turn this off, will I be able to turn it back on? I guess we'll try. No, will we try? Yes, let's try.